Hello, friends, and welcome to the Cinemondo podcast with just me. I've been talking about Kieslowski's epic series, Dekalog. And today I want to talk about Dekalog 9, episode 9. I'm almost at the end, and frankly, a bit sad about it coming to an end. I've really been enjoying this in a way that I don't often feel when I watch shows, TV series, things like that. This one is definitely of its time and place. It was filmed in the late 80s, 88, in Warsaw, Poland, during the rough times of Soviet communism and whatnot. And it really shows in the series. I've talked a lot about the fact that there's not a whole lot of happiness in this series. And a lot of other reviews have sort of, described it as being sort of grim and colorless and unhappy. To me, it has a sense of unhappiness to the entire series, but don't let that turn you away from it, because although it does portray, I believe, the sort of realism of the people in the stories, the realities of day-to-day life in that situation, the kind of grim daily go to work, get up in the same, the same sadness and whatever kinds of sadnesses that you're being confronted with in the context of this series. The people just seem to like, yeah, this is the way it is. This is my life. There's not a whole lot of pursuit of happiness in here. The people seem to, even when they're having fun, like there's a scene in this episode where a guy is riding his bike and you feel like he's not having fun. He's not riding and smiling. He is pushing himself. He's in pain, Anyway, this episode is interesting. It is, again, this is another one that I feel like is maybe not one of my favorite episodes. It's great, and it gives you plenty of things to think about, like all of the other episodes. But it's not as it's almost like a story about something that you feel like is not. I don't know how to put this. It's not as heavy of an issue as some of the other stories. Anyway, it's about a man who finds out that he is impotent, and in the context of the story, that is a death sentence almost, because his doctor friend basically tells him, you need to get a divorce. This is the end. You basically, like, this is the end of your life as a man. You are no longer a man. You must get a divorce. And very bluntly, his friend tells him that. So this man goes home and he's just distraught. It's like his life is over. There's nothing else to live for, it seems. Like the one happiness, the one joy of his life is not coming back. Basically, he found out from his friend, no, there's no cure. You're like this forever. So he goes home to his lovely wife and tells her about it, and basically that, I can call a lawyer and we can get a divorce. And she basically is like, no, we love each other. Why would we do that? When you marry someone, you love them. And she kind of explained, she's like, love isn't all just that one thing. The love we feel for each other is so much more than just that. And he seems to just still be really distraught about it, of course, but he also starts to suspect that maybe she's seeing, since he's had this issue, she has been seeing another man to get this other aspect of her life, and the man, her husband, finds out about it and basically kind of makes sure of it by following and tapping the phone and even to the point where he's hiding in the place where she's having her affair, and spying and all this kind of stuff. And it turns out at the end of the story, it almost goes into a sort of a Romeo and Juliet moment where she after he catches her in her affair, she basically says it was never, basically she says, it wasn't fun. It was just because I thought I needed that, and I really don't need that. And I told him to go away, and he saw her tell the young man to go away, and she just felt like it wasn't fulfilling. It didn't make her feel good. It didn't bring anything to her that she needed. So she sent him away and basically just tells her husband, look, I love you, and I think we're going to work this out. We're going to live and go on with our lives. And he, of course, seems a little depressed about it, but he says maybe we should just have a break from each other for a moment. And she goes skiing. She goes off somewhere fairly nearby, because I think she takes a little bus up there to the hills to go skiing. And then he sees the boyfriend, putting skis on his car. And he's thinking, oh, she just told me that she sent that boy away. She's never seeing him, and that's not going to be a part of her life, and she's going to devote her life to him. But here this boy is putting skis on his car. So he's very sad about it. So he goes in and he calls the home where the boy lives. I guess the boy's mother answers, and he says, is he there? And she says, no, he went skiing at this exact same place that his wife had gone. And so now he's thinking, she's told him to go up there. So anyway, we see her at the ski resort, and the boy comes up behind her, and she didn't know that he had followed her there. He found out she had gone skiing, and he went around looking for her. And he is telling her, I am in love with you, and you need to get a divorce from your husband and all this. And she's like, no, you are out of my life. And then she feels like she doesn't want to be there anymore at this ski resort. So she runs to the phone and she calls her husband. But at this point, the husband is so distraught by the fact that he believes his wife has lied to him that he's gone out on his bicycle, and he tries to kill himself by riding his bike off a cliff of some kind. So she goes home. She gets on the bus, she goes home, and when she gets home, she finds a suicide note in the phone from him, and she reads it, and she's just torn up about it. And so then you realize that the guy did not die. He's just hurt himself really badly. He looks like he's in a body cast or something. Looks like he has a slight head injury, but he's alive. And he calls and they talk. And this is the episode, I think, that has perhaps the happiest ending, because I started thinking, like Romeo and Juliet, is she now, when she thinks that he has killed himself, is she going to do it too? And then you're going to find out he was alive, and but you don't. At the end, it's sort of in the nick of time. There's this one incredibly suspenseful moment where she's just crying and crying because she thinks he's killed himself, and the phone's ringing, and she just doesn't want to answer it because she thinks maybe it's her boyfriend, I guess, her boyfriend who's in love with her. But finally she picks up the phone, and you're thinking, pick up the phone because it's her husband calling. And so she picks up the phone, and they both kind of realize she's so happy that he's alive, and he's happy to hear her voice. And it's a melancholy, bittersweet kind of ending, of course, but it is somewhat of a happy ending because they both survived this. They went through a trauma together, and you get the impression, okay, this is probably going to make their relationship stronger and more honest, more open with each other. And then we get this little bit of a smile, I think, on his face as we fade to black. And it is an episode that has got those elements that all the other episodes have of sort of depression, sadness, life is not fair kind of issues. But at the end, the conclusion here seems to be it's you live with what you have, and you find the people in your life who can cope with you and cope with your issues. And if you love someone, you love them. You never know what the complete components of that person are that you find. But you love them, and if you love them, you love the whole thing. You love everything about it. So that seems to me to be the message here. There's other moral questions and ethical questions and things like that of course are woven into this story. And our reoccurring character appears riding a bike a couple of times in this, which is interesting because the husband tries to take his own life on his bicycle, and you see him, this recurring character, this people that call this sort of the Christ-like character, is on a bicycle, but he's got like a little trailer behind the bicycle, like he's carrying something with him, like he's going somewhere. He's a vagabond or something, like he's going from town to town or something like that. But anyway, he is there in this episode. And he looks at our main character and does that eye contact thing that he does in all the, like you sense that there is a presence there. Maybe it is the feeling of the person who is making their choice, making that ethical choice. He's making a choice to take his own life. And that choice is one of those choices that in religious philosophies, you're told that someone is watching, the deity is watching. And I feel like at that moment when you make a decision like that, if you're a religious person, you might feel like he, it, she, they, whatever is watching me right now, and feeling a sense of being observed when I do something horrible or sad or desperate, depressing. Anyway, that is my impression of this episode. It's perhaps not one of my favorites, but it is quite a good one. The cast, once again, incredible, beautifully shot, beautifully directed. The visual storytelling and the choices that were made in here. One other point I wanted to make was there are some elements of the visual elements and story elements that seem at first when I was watching it to be a little bit, they seem to be a little bit like imagery that was implying his situation in a way that seemed a little juvenile to me at first. Like there's one point where somebody's putting gas in the car and he can't get the gas, and the guy goes up and he takes the nozzle on the gas can and he turns it up like that and pours it in, and you're thinking, that's kind of juvenile reference, and then there's a few other visual references of things that could be implied to suggest his situation. There were a few, and I don't know if I was, maybe my mind's in the gutter or something, but I think they might have been intentional. And at first I thought perhaps a little juvenile, a little bit, maybe an attempt at humor or something. But then it struck me what was happening was we were seeing these things perhaps subliminally or just shy of subliminal through the eyes of our main character. Because to someone struggling with such a thing, the way he was, such a deep struggle in his mind, he may see things everywhere. You know what I mean? You interpret if you're it's that I don't know where the official name for it, but where you suddenly start seeing things when you think about them. Like the first time you ever hear a certain word, and then suddenly you hear it all day, and then you hear it tomorrow, and then. So I think maybe those visual cues were put into the story to imply that he was seeing those things in his life. Like he can't stop thinking about himself in those terms and thinking about his situation to the point where he sees it everywhere. He's surrounded by images like that and visual cues that remind him. And in that way, I thought, wow, that's very interesting. That's a very interesting way of sort of subliminally making us feel like he must feel. Anyway, those are some of my interpretations of this episode. If I missed anything, let me know in the comments. And if I, if I'm completely wrong, let me know. If you came up with a completely different interpretation of this entire series, which is very likely because. Who knows? I don't know what I'm talking about. I just interpret from my perspective. There's a lot of cultural things here I might be missing. If we have any friends from Poland, or who live in these areas, who may remember these times, let me know if I'm hitting the right notes here as far as the cultural interpretations and things like that. Anyway, thanks for listening. That was Dekalog 9. Next episode is going to be the final episode of my review of the Decalogue series, and hopefully you're enjoying it. I'm certainly enjoying watching it. But thanks for watching, and I will talk to you again real soon.